So let's get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Bradavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pratipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Parnaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So welcome everyone to the third lecture on chapter 10, which is called the Vibhuti Yoga, or the Yoga of the Divine Glories. So this is, yes, the 10th chapter, which is in the second part of Bhagavad Gita. And we saw that from the 7th chapter, Lord Krishna has been talking to us about really the Ishvara aspect, right? So it is a very progressive chapter. It's a progressive chapter on the nature of God. And in the 7th chapter, he started to explain about the nature of God. And then in the 8th, we found that, it is the same chapter, the same aspect was discovered. And you will see that in this, starting from the 10th, he will continue to speak about this as the central theme. So all along up to 6th chapter, when we saw it was about Jiva, about us, really, we are the ones who are dealing with this world. We are the ones who are going through all the ups and downs, all the things that happen, good things, not so good. All this is about us is what we discussed in the first 6 chapters. And we saw how Arjuna, was so dejected and he had to be pulled up. And not that we are all that dejected or anything, but we also go through certain elements of challenges, I would say. Challenges is a good word. It can be small, it can be big. But so the first 6 chapters, we was dealing about all that. But towards the end of the 6th chapter, we saw how, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that, at the end of the day, you have to think about the fact that you're part of the bigger picture. Part of the bigger picture also is easy to understand, but when Krishna tells him about, there is this aspect of Ishvara, Ishvara who is up there, to whom you can surrender, that's when, Arjuna is trying to really grapple with this aspect of who is this Ishvara. And that is why this whole 6 chapters is so very critical about who is this Ishvara. And in our common parlance, I thought, for reflection, we should reflect the last 3 chapters because it is about really who is this Jagat Karanam. Jagat meaning the world, Karanam, who's the cause? Who's the cause of this whole universe? Because that's how, from the young age, we tell our children, well, it all, starts with God. God created everything. God is up there, But who is this God? Who is this God is what we are learning from our Hindu philosophy. And in our Hindu philosophy, which can seem a little complicated for a lot of people, but it is actually needed because we are living in this world of diversity. There's just no question about it. So, to simplify this aspect of who God is, and just to say that God in heaven, and then, God is this one person, and God is the one who created the world. God is the one who, does good things for us, and God is the one who removes bad things. But then when bad things happen, we wonder, who is this God? So, all these questions, they come to us. First of all, starting with, really, is there really a God? And I think we all will agree that this aspect of is there a God really comes into play when we really go through some major challenges in our life. Whether it's losing somebody close to us, or whether we ourselves go through some kind of a health issue, or even at work, somebody work, or for that matter, personal relationships, all these things, that's when it really strikes us that there is something, someone, some power beyond us, who we really cannot understand, right? So from the 7th chapter onwards, we saw that Arjuna is exposed to this aspect of God. And if somebody can tell me, how did Krishna introduce the of God in the 7th chapter? There were 2 very simple words that he uses. So he introduces the word para prakriti and apara, So the nature, and para and apara meaning one is the lower nature, which is apara, para, which is the higher aspect. So that is how Lord Krishna introduces subject of God to Arjuna. So just by these words of para and apara to indicate the nature of God, you see how Krishna has already explained about the fact that God is not somebody who is a person, God is not somebody who is there, who does everything, but apara meaning the entire world of everything that I see, feel, hear, think, all that is the apara, right? So it includes all the inanimate things, which really constitutes the most of it, right? All the inert aspects, including our own bodies, our physical body, which is made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, all this stuff, and uh, all the mountains, all the rivers, all this, anything which we can touch, feel, that is God. That's how he says. Now, we don't look at it that way. We just buy our phones, we buy our objects, our clothes, and everything. We don't think that is God. But the Hindu philosophy is so expansive, it just embraces everything. And he says that is God, and that is the apara prakriti. So that is how we saw that. So if that is apara prakriti, then what is para? So para is that aspect which literally brings to life everything, you know. So then is it really life? We may question that. We say that, okay, God is the life in everything. Yes, to some extent, depending upon where the person is in their own evolution, we can say that. So for a child, for example, we may say that, yes, look, see, everything is moving. That movement aspect is life, and that is God. And the child is happy until at one point, then the child is going to ask, oh, okay, now this is not moving. Does that mean that that is not God? And then I can just kick it and do anything I want? No, we say, no, you can't. Just like this Akbar and Birbal story, right? Where Birbal, who's a Hindu, is walking with Akbar, and Birbal, goes to every plant, everything, and he does namaskar. And Akbar is wondering, why is he doing this? Until Akbar actually faces one rose bush with its thorns and it bites him. And then he realizes, no, he has to be mindful of everything. I mean, this is in very short, I'm saying that story, but the aspect about it is that everything is God. Everything needs to be worshipped, to be treated well. And what a powerful philosophy when you think about it that way, because now we are so careful. I mean, once I know this, it automatically brings into aspect of how much I need to think about what am I wasting? What am I using unnecessarily? What am I taking from nature that is, uh, not needed that much? There are so many aspects that one just goes into because I now have a reverence for everything, right? So that is the apara prakriti. And then coming back to when I said about life, what is it that gives life? Is it the pranas? So life is nothing but the five pranas. And this is where again a Vedanta comes so beautifully to help us understand that the pancha pranas is really what the life process is all about. So even that is an aspect of the apara prakriti. Now we go to that higher level, which is the para prakriti, is the aspect of consciousness or paramatman. That is the para prakriti, paramatman. And then we have the apara prakriti, which is the nature of every matter, every matter. So this is the thing. So the basic principle we talked about is who is God then? Krishna is saying that God is these two aspects, which is the para prakriti and the apara prakriti. 1 second. So para prakriti and apara prakriti, these are the two aspects of what we call is who is God. Okay. Any more thoughts to offer on this before we go into this? Is very important because 10th chapter is really about the glorification of God in matter. That is what is coming up, and that is why this introduction is very, very necessary as we go into this chapter itself.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
So you said in 7th chapter,
Yes.
from 7th verse onwards, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna who he is and all that, like Matha Paradaram Nanyat Kinjit Asti Dhananchaya Mai Sharvam Idam Prodam Sutre Manikana Iva. So he says, none other than me, Arjuna, everything, no other whatsoever is there. Everything is strung on me as clusters of gems on a string. And then after that, he says, I am the sapidity in the water, light in the moon, the sun. I am the syllable Om. I am in all Vedas and everything, virality in man. I am the sweet and fragrance in the earth, brilliance and fire, and life in all beings. So from 7 onwards, he keeps saying, he keeps
Correct.
explaining to Arjuna who he is.
Correct. Beautiful, beautiful, Meena. Thank you for connecting it immediately to those particular shlokas of 7th chapter.
Because when you
So
said,
in that
can you recollect?
shloka, what he read about Sutre Manigana Eva, you see already both the para and apara is mentioned, right?
Yes. That's why when you said from 7th chapter, can you recollect? So I was going, because this particular 7th sloka, I think almost 3 classes you explained about the gems and the clusters and everything about it. So it cannot go out from our mind, for sure.
Right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Meena. Thank you. It warms
Hari
up my
Om.
heart to hear that. So that's what, so all that beads the pearls. And here, what a beautiful analogy, which is, like when you see all this, these are the pearls. These are the whole pearls which are strewn together by that thread. So the pearl, all this, everything what we see, all this is the apara prakriti. And of course, our mind becomes so calm and peaceful when we see this kind of beauty, right? But what you will see is from the 10th chapter, you start to recognize that it's not just these beautiful aspects alone, but also the everything we see. Suppose I walk out and I see a beggar on the street, you know, immediately the thought should not go as, oh my God, is this person, did this person take a bath? I'm going close to it. Am I going to get the germs or whatever? No. Even this person is a beautiful manifestation of that Lord, you know. So that's in when people say that Hinduism, we don't see love or we don't see anything. No, that is not true. It is every manifestation is that manifestation, the vibhuti of that Lord. So apara prakriti refers to the manifestation, the glories of the Lord everywhere. And if I see anything negative somewhere, that is a reflection of my own negativity which is there within myself, right? So I need to conquer that. I need to find a way of developing that bhakti and devotion to seeing that Lord in and through everything. So that is the beauty. Now, let us kind of go through a little bit on this aspect here. Of course, we will be doing more shlokas today. But since we are on this aspect of seeing God everywhere, what do you think are the common features and possibly the differences? What is it's a comparative contrast between para and apara prakriti. What do you think is common between both of them, and what is the difference between para and apara?
I think the common would be the consciousness. It's the consciousness within the essence, or the supreme consciousness is the same between para and apara prakriti. But the differences would be we as a jiva, we associate ourselves with the upadhi, and para prakriti is the substratum on which all the upadhis are.
Okay.
Something that is,
Yeah. You got some of the things right, but some of the concepts need to be understood properly.
yeah.
Sorry, I think my internet connection is a little unstable. I don't know if you heard. So a simple example which we have talked about before is about any of the electronic gadgets. any of the electronic gadgets, like, for example, the phone or my AC in the room or bulb, in all these areas, you have thing which is common with all of them, and that is the electricity. Electricity, without electricity, none of these things would function. Or in the iPhone, when I'm not connected to the electricity, it charges the battery. But electricity is common. Electricity charges the power in the battery and everything. So that pure electricity is the para. It can be an reference, rather, can be para. But that doesn't mean that, of course, every time I see electricity and that reminds me of God, yes, that is another manifestation. Okay, electricity is also a manifestation. Like, for example, in Rudram and everything, we talk about sun and everything. The sun, even though the sun, it's because of sun there is life on the universe and everything, but even sun is a manifestation. Sun will come under the category of apara prakriti. Para means pure consciousness. Pure consciousness. And actually in this chapter, I hope I'll be able to get to it. There's some very powerful concept about understanding para prakriti. Okay. So that is the difference. Para is the consciousness and apara is everything else. Pure consciousness, electricity versus everything else. Electricity is the same, but equipments are many, functions are many, forms are many, colors are many. All that is different.
So para prakriti is the higher cause and apara prakriti is the lower cause. Is that correct?
Lower part, not the cause. Did I hear the word cause?
Yes.
No. So cause, you cannot say. I mean, in some sense, you can say it, but for example, even if you take this example, what I just gave as a phone, we need both the aspects for the phone to function, right? So in that sense, it is a cause. Yeah, for the cause, for phone to be useful, we need both the causes. One is the electricity and the whole casing, and the whole casing includes all the apps and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Harvam.
Yes, Sanat.
Sunitha ji. Yeah, we can see the apara prakriti. I mean, through so many things, or the creation, and then in so many aspects. The para prakriti is the one, as you mentioned, like electricity, which is behind everything, and then that's that which is behind in and through, but behind everything. Is that the way of?
Yeah, you could look at it that way, but also it is not necessarily behind, because electricity, I can feel it. The minute I put my hands on a socket or something, I can feel the electricity, right? But I don't pay attention to the fact that it's because of electricity that everything is happening, right? I get so enamored. Now, we may question as to why this distinction is needed for us at all, correct? The point for us is to bring our mind to a state of calmness. I mean, at the highest, at the root level. Then we question as to why is my mind not very calm? Because my mind is so full of thoughts about apara prakriti. So to bring myself all the way to a calmness at the very, very highest level of where I can evolve myself is to be in touch. But words really fail. It's not as if I'm really touching reality, but I need to be more in touch with para prakriti. Today, my mind is too boggled with apara prakriti.
Right.
I don't know if I really answered Anantji's question. Can you?
Right. Yeah. The unmanifested part is is a para prakriti, and the manifested form is the para prakriti. Yeah,
Apara
thanks.
Prakriti. Yes, yes. So, what do you think is the common thing between para and apara, even though they seem so different, right? I mean, even if I take this analogy, I'm just using the analogy because the analogy helps us to understand what I use on a daily basis. Like, for example, we're comparing para to electricity and apara to the casing of the iPhone with the apps and all that, right? So, what do you think is common between both of them?
They both are always connected.
They are connected. Yes, they are connected. But there is one very, important thing here. Both para and apara, they are actually beginningless. Okay. Now, one may say that, I'm creating this new casings, iPhone 10 to 12 to 15, wherever we are right now. Am I not creating new things? Actually, not. That we're only converting from one form to another, right? Like, for example, I mean, simple Bhagavad says, right? At the end of the day, we come here, we take birth, we live, and then we go back to the earth. And again, the whole thing is recycled. So today, what I'm breathing in terms of air, which again is apara prakriti, may have molecules which maybe from a long time ago, somebody's thing is what I'm breathing in, right? So matter is also beginningless. Consciousness is also beginningless. Electricity has always been there. And even this iPhone may not have been there in the form it is, but it was in a different form. So matter, it goes back to one of the laws, right? Matter can neither be created nor destroyed. It is always there. So this kind of uncreated, beginningless consciousness matter unit or composite, this whole thing, is the God or Ishvara. That is one thing which is common between them. Okay, now what is the difference? But is this clear? I mean, maybe before we move to the common thing versus uncommon, what do you think?
Just since we are talking about the electricity and the iPhone or any if we are talking about that, so we are saying to some extent we are calling electricity as the para prakriti, just for our understanding for
Right.
this situation, and the phone is apara prakriti, but we are saying both are beginningless. For the apara prakriti, the way I'm understanding, that is what I want clarification is, iPhone did not exist in that form, but the individual components were all existing. It took some genius mind to put all of it together and make this thing called the iPhone, right? Is that what
Correct.
you think? That putting all those individual individual elements that are already found in the nature, putting it together and making this object. Is that what?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. That is correct. So this, what exists as the casing, the matter here, was in a different form in maybe 50 years ago or something. That same elements, that is really the matter part of it. Yes. So coming to what is different then is one thing what Suvarna mentioned earlier is the para is the substratum. It is changeless, whereas apara is the one which keeps changing. Said with the iPhone material, that material was in a different form at one time, and now it is in the form which is of use to me. So this is the difference between is changeless. Like, electricity too. We know electricity is nothing but a flow of electrons. That hasn't changed. Nobody has created electrons by a flow of protons, neutrons, or anything. It still is electrons, That has not changed at all. So too, but then, like I said, electricity is also at a high level, if we look at it, is nothing but apara prakriti. It's just manifestation. It is a vibhuti of that Lord. But para prakriti is consciousness. So para prakriti is consciousness. It is unchanging. It is changeless. It is a substratum. And it's actually, and we'll come to it more on when we talk about how it is the efficient cause. It is a material cause. It is only from para prakriti that we know about. Okay. So this matter is evolving, and it's not only subject to, it is subject to evolution, but it can fall back. So the apara prakriti also has, not that it is going, there is an end to it, but there's seemingly at different times there are ends. Just like how a physical body has a certain time, but after a certain time, there is a much bigger kind of a change that happens where the whole matter folds back. Okay, so there are three times where you think that something is going through a drastic change. One of them, of course, is, for example, when we go to sleep, right? That is also considered to be one form of a dissolution for this apara prakriti. The second time of the dissolution is, when you really change. And the last one is the all these things is what we look at as the change, the differences. And then finally, one more thing, which is that consciousness is completely the absolute truth. And when we use the word absolute, it means that it is not dependent on any condition to change. It is completely independent. It is completely swatantram. That's what we say. Whereas this matter, which is this one, that is completely, it undergoes changes. And I'm using this word, which I'll go deeper into it as we go along a little later, which is mithya. We call any matter is nothing but mithya, subject to change. And this, it is, later we'll come to the words like unreal and everything, but it is this. Now, this whole combination of matter and consciousness is what we call as Ishvara. Any question? So you see that, the chapter really opens up again with having listened to this philosophy of para prakriti, apara prakriti in the 7 chapters, as Meena elaborated so beautifully. And then you see in chapter 8, where there's a slight deviation, where Arjuna has some questions as, what if somebody really doesn't buy completely into what you're saying? What is the status? All that. So you see Arjuna, who was so confused in the beginning of the first chapter, is now slowly becoming drawn to this philosophy. And he starts to actually develop a certain amount of calmness, through all this. So look at this philosophy. Amazing in the sense, even just listening to the philosophy, listening to the connection, what this age-old, this is the Sanatana Dharma, right? It is the oldest philosophy, which has withstood the test of time, and because of which even today we are. So just listening to this, Arjuna has become quiet. He's become this. And because he's become so quiet in Shloka 1 itself, you see how Krishna is now inspired. he gets inspired that here there is a student who is so interested in this philosophy and the implication. And, he sees sort of this brilliant joy in his student. And when he sees this, this satisfaction, he gets so encouraged that he starts to, take this Arjuna, and he calls him, again, a great Mahabahu, a man of such great powers. And he says, again, listen again one more time to this beautiful philosophy. And again, it is, we may say, it is not rocket science, So it's a very simple philosophy, which Krishna is telling again. Who is at the highest level of mental equipoise and clarity, you need to be told only once, right? But here, Krishna is reminding us now, through Arjuna, he's reminding us again and again, Bhuya Eva, again, listen, O great soldier, Shrunume Paramam Vachaha, that supreme word, and which I'm so delighted, you are such a delightful person that I can talk to you, and I wish you the very best, and that is why I'm giving you this word. So the first 3 shlokas actually is again setting the stage where, just in the previous, the last shloka, the 34th shloka of 9th chapter was so powerful. So again, Krishna has to make sure that, and so in shloka 2, you find that aspect of he's coming to explain what consciousness is, and he starts to say about how that even if you try very, very, very hard to understand the nature of this consciousness, which, we are all trying very hard to understand this through our 5 sense organs and through our intellect. But even with all this, it is almost impossible to understand it. And that is why he says, he says in the shloka, Name vidu suraganaha prabhavam na maharshayaha aham adihi devana maharshinam cha sarvashaha. So he refers to 2 people. One of them he says is Maharshina, the Maharshis, and we will go into a little bit of detail to understand this. So not even the Maharshi, even the Devas. Now we look at Devas as people who are gods, right? We call Devas as gods, but actually Devas are the powers which power up our sense organs. Just like in a car, we have the carburetor, we have different aspects of the, and I'm using automotive as an example because you're all mostly from Detroit. So, so we have different things in a car which gets powered up because of which we are able to ride. So too, Devas are nothing but the power for all our sense organs. So he says, I am the source for all the Devas. And therefore, how do you think Devas would know? It's like, I need to go behind my eye to really understand what is happening. How can I use my eye, my external eye, to go behind, right? So that's the whole thing that he's, that my origin, neither Suraganaha, neither the hosts of heavens, nor the Saptarishis know. I'm the source for all Devas and Maharishi in every way. So, Suraganaha, these are beings who are endowed with natural capacity to know everything which is divine power. And he's saying that those people, they really fail in grasping who the Lord is. And then, who are the Saptarishis? They are the 7 rishis who are born from the mind of the Hiranyagarbha. We'll again get to Hiranyagarbha at some point. Hiranyagarbha, who are not in the position to know. So again, the aspect here, what is, even the deities are not in a position to know the divine secret because they are the illuminers. Like, for example, how can a bird know the power of the sun, a bulb is something which is giving a small light, whereas the sun is giving such a huge amount of light. So everything which is finite it'll be very, very hard to know the infinite aspect of it. So this statement basically glorifies two things. It glorifies, first of all, the supreme reality, Paramatman. So it glorifies that Lord Divine's origin, because even the celestial beings, that is Suraganaha, they cannot know it. And also kind of this, another thing that comes through in the shloka is the fact that there's such a strong bond between Arjuna and Krishna. And so Krishna is telling Arjuna, you know what? I really, really want the very best for you. And you are most qualified to get this knowledge. And even if you think that, oh, the lords and the rishis who have done so much amount of tapas, if they know it, how come you're telling me? So, Krishna is actually elevating Arjuna's position and getting him ready for this knowledge. So he has so much amount of faith in them. So indirectly, this is even for us that, each one of us have the capacity to understand this knowledge. And it really is kind of, sometimes I feel it's a shame on us that we are not exercising that capacity within us. We are happy with the small, small things in life, and that is sometimes kind of suppressing our ability to evolve, our ability to grow. So each one of us have that ability to reach that highest, but we ourselves are like, Uddaredatmanatmanam, Atmanam avasati, Atmaiva Bandhu, Atmaiva Ripu too, So we are ourselves, our own enemies, our own this grow. So all this is sort of really, it kind of brings here this aspect here to see this. So let us think about, who are these great rishis? And this will actually come up. This word Maharshayaha comes up again in 6th shloka. And again, I've taken, from Gurudev's book, Swami Chinmayananda's, where he talks about this great rishis. And, so basically, the Sapta rishis, they come by different names, anywhere from Bhrigu to Vasishta. So there are 7 in one. So at any point in time, you will see this 3 sets of rishis, there's 3 sets of Sapta rishis. They're talked about as really the men of great knowledge and experience. But we who are students of Vedanta, so this comes in the Puranas, actually. Puranas all the time. And of course, the words Vivaswan, Manave Prahu, this we have seen in chapter 4, and Angirasa, all this, read the different texts of Puranas, you actually come across the names. But what do they represent? That is a very important thing. And they basically represent the aspect of our total intellect, which is the Mahat, we call this. So each one of us, we have our own tiny intellects, right? Now, how does this world function? The world, we think, we feel that when I am acting in this world, I am moving something, right? And we feel so good. Oh, I created it. I discovered it. It is because of me that I was able to do so much. But no, that is not the case. We are only a small part of the total intellect, which is actually the mover and shaker of the world, So this is what we call this as the Mahat. And so this Mahat, and along with this aspect of this Ahankar, So this at a total level, this projects out, the joys and the transactions of the whole world of the sense objects. And these sense objects, they are actually from the 5 tanmatras. We have talked about this aspect of tanmatras before. the subtle aspect of all the gross element. The gross elements are 5 in number, right? So we have the space, earth, fire, water, air, and all this in subtle factors is called the tanmatras. So these are the 5 tanmatras. So the total intellect, the concept of the I, or we call it egoism, along with the 5 tanmatras, they are the 7 rishis which are personified in the Puranas under different names. So they represent actually the total, the intellectual, and of course the mind of man, which is actually the efficient. We call this as an efficient cause and the material cause. Efficient cause is the by the word efficient, what we mean is the brain behind things, what is making. So, for example, when we use, again, I'm using classic Vedanta examples, which is when you create a pot, right? In order to create a pot, you need to have the potter who has the design in the mind, and then you need the mud. So the mud is a material cause, and the potter with the design in his mind and the ability to make it, we call that as the efficient cause. So the 7 rishis actually refers to that intellect and the mental capacity of the man to create the whole world. So which is the efficient and the material cause. And so that's so that is what here we're talking about, the Maharshis. And this is the Maharshis that he's saying that even these Maharshis who are such great men of knowledge and who represent the whole creation of the world, even they cannot really understand what my true nature is. And again, devas we refer to as, they are the power behind all the sense organs. So they have the ability to illumine, they have the ability to power all the sense organs. And these two together is what by which we can actually, the whole world is, goes through. And just to give you a glimpse into the depth of this philosophy here is what he's trying to say is even all of them are unable to understand the substratum, or can even fathom what the substratum is all about, because the substratum is beyond the sense organs. And we are so habituated to use only our sense organs to understand this, that we never ever get to it. It's like, for example, when I'm trying to use the telescope to see the whole world, right? So many of us have gone to the big buildings, and from there want to see the whole stars, the planets, the galaxies. You can literally see the entire world in front of you, right? But is it possible to see the observer through the telescope? The person behind the telescope who's actually seeing the whole thing, who's witnessing this whole thing. So it's like that. That is what he's trying to say, that I'm going to, maybe all things, everything can be explained, all that, but to get to that ultimate thing is what he's trying to say here. Then in shloka number 3, he kind of gives you an idea of why one should really understand this. What is in it for me? What is really the gain of understanding all these glories of Ishvara? So in this, he ultimately says that a person who really understands this glory of Ishvara at the highest level, such a person has a capacity to be the wisest person. Such a person has the ability to be completely, who has the highest power of discrimination. And by doing so, such a person is completely freed from any kind of papa that he may have conducted in the past. So that is really the gain of getting into this knowledge. So he says, Yo mam ajam anadim cha veti loka maheshwaram asam muda Samartyeshu sarva papai pramuchyate. So, martyaha, martyeshu, martyaha means mortals. And mortals are people who have a birth and death. Okay. So, all of us are actually, if we have to give ourselves a name, we can define ourselves not as human or anything. We can just say as people who go through birth and death, you know. So he says, Matyeshu and Asamudha, such a person among mortals, we have the capacity to become an Asammudaha, which, so who is a Matyeshu? When I said a birth and death, is a person who has not understood the philosophy of life, a person who has not yet grasped the ultimate philosophy. Such a person keeps coming back again and again and again. And why does he come back again and again? Because that person has not truly understood what life is about. So such a person is a mudaha. But asam mudaha is a person who has now understood. So there's no reason for him to go back and again and again. It's like, for example, if I'm working in a certain company and I have not used the company well to understand my own strength and weaknesses, for example, what I do, I will keep looking for another company and yet another company and yet another company, right? So I keep going from one company to another company to another company. Or sometimes it could be even relationships, if I'm not happy with a certain relationship, then I go to another one. This is, of course, I'm talking about ideal situations. Of course, in the day-to-day world, we understand our limitations of relationships and all that. But the point here, coming back here, is to understand that a person who has clearly understood life is an asammudaha. So that is the greatest benefit that one person can get by this. And another benefit is sarva papaihi. If in the past committed a sin, in the sense not necessarily, committing a murder or thieving or anything, not necessarily just that. Even simple things that by knowingly or unknowingly, I told something, I hurt somebody's feelings or whatever. So by this knowledge, I will be able to be free of any kind of papa. What a wonderful benefit, So, and then he says, he gives a little bit of description of, really who he is. That is, only who has understood that Lord as somebody who is ajam, who is birthless, and who is anadi, and who knows him as the Loka Maheshwaram, as the Lord of the universe. Such a person becomes wise, and such a person is free from all this. So last time we talked about, the discriminative power which is needed at the highest level, which is the Amshi Sadhana Sadhya, Shreya Preya, the ability to distinguish between what is pleasant for me, is what is good for me, the ability to understand the entire world is one world. It's not like my world and your world or anything. That is what the part and whole is. And then means versus goal, simples, money, is money a goal or is money the means to a goal? Same thing, let's take another example, which is our health. Okay. Good health, is that a final goal or is it a means to a bigger goal? Now, today, we spend a lot of time to get good health, correct? But even that good health is only a means, because even without a healthy body, how can I ever achieve it, right? So that's the aspect here he's trying to say. Health is only a means. And then self and not self. Today we spend Atma. We talked about the Apara Prakriti aspect of it. But we need to move even further to get to that absolute consciousness. And Nitya and Anitya, again, permanent versus impermanent. We are really focused a lot on acquiring things which are not permanent. How do I give that up to reach out to the permanent? So aspects that were discussed. And then what Krishna does is starts to first out what are his subtle manifestations. Again, you can see the teachings, how he starts, he is already assumed that, we all are at a high level of clarity in our mind and how we can reach out to it. So he starts thinking about the subtle aspect of his own glories, of his expressions. So we did the shloka last time, so I just go through it a little bit. He starts to about how, it is his own aspect, which is the buddhi, capacity to understand very subtle aspects. We know that, our power of thinking can be divided into two aspects. One of them is the aspect which we use to transact in this world, which we call that as a mind. And then have that same thinking capacity allows us to reach out to higher realms of thinking. And in order to access that higher realms of thinking, sometimes the mind rest, and this is where aspects of concentration and meditation really play, because those are great exercises. The mind, and then to focus on the higher level of thinking. And what he calls this as buddhi. Buddhi is a capacity to understand that subtle aspects. And then what is jnanam? Jnanam is the capacity to really gather knowledge. So, for example, if I don't know about a rose, what do? I start to Google it or read some books on roses. And once I know that aspect, I become more educated to understand what aspects of the rose plant that I can, really use, and what aspects I have to be careful of, like the thorns and everything. So jnanam is that capacity to gather knowledge in the face of information and to store it in one's memory. So it is a stage actually lower than buddhi. It is actually the raw material for the buddhi itself. Then asammoha is the ability to wade through the information without getting confused or flustered. So moha means again delusion or being it's where I can get deluded. So that is asammoha is my ability to not get confused and focus on the right thing. Then kshama. What is kshama? Kshama, the capacity of the mind to be unperturbed. Okay. Face of any challenges of somebody's telling me something negative quickly. It's like, like a rubber band, right? When I pull the band, how quickly it back to its essential state is the factor which is in my mind as to be able to immediately discard what somebody is telling me, which is negative or whatever, or to call me, oh, you fool, do I get perturbed? And if I get perturbed, which can happen because of my prarabdha, right? My prarabdha over a period of time, I've always become so affected by it. But how quickly I come back and say, you know what? Am I really a fool? Okay, if I'm a fool, what can I do to get out of it quickly? That is the thing about kshama. What is satyam? Satyam is when I hear something, I'm able to immediately grasp the essence of it. Okay. Immediately, I'm able to see the real essence and be able to even tell others what it means. So satyam, the essence of it to be understood. And then dhamma and shama. Dhamma is where my sense organs are controlled. I do not allow my sense organs to run wild, but control it. But Dhamma is something controlling the mind from going out. Okay. So Dhamma is this example, when I'm going to Costco, for example, and I want to Costco only to buy, say, milk and possibly yogurt, maybe, but I go there and they have all these free samples. What do? I immediately get attracted to it. So that Dhamma is the ability to control my sense of organs from not going out. Now, Shama is where I'm controlled in my mind, where my mind is controlled and it doesn't seek out new things. So Dhamma is where from out external things, I'm not allowing it to come inside. Shama is, I'm not, even in my mind, I don't entertain anything and I'm controlled with it. Then Bhava and birth and death or existence and non-existence, that aspect of Bhava. Bhava in general means the ability to exist. So how do I cope up with this aspect of existence and non-existence is bhava and abhava, and bhayam and is, fear and fearlessness. So the ability to be able to discriminate. So again, this is that aspect of viveka, which allows us to understand each one of them. And shloka 5, let's look at this also because they go together. The different aspects here, which is again not in towards others, ability to, be not sure anybody through thought, word, or mind. Then equanimity, and then tushtihi is, anything that comes. Food doesn't have that much, or this one, I'm okay with it. I'm satisfied. That ability to be tushti is a very important aspect here. Then tapas is the aspect of disciplining the body, again through control of organs. Dana is distribution of wealth according to one's capacity. Then yash and ayashaha is renown, the not actually prosperity is aishwaryam. Yasha is the ability to be famous and infamous. That is a better word. And then so there are about things which arise in me as the supreme reality. That's what Krishna is saying. Okay, so so it's the Lord alone who is really appearing as the mind and the thoughts. So in all this too, I am that Lord, so that is what Krishna is coming to explain here with these 4 and 5 shlokas. So then, after having explained this, he actually goes to shloka number 6, and I know we are running out of time. I was hoping to do this, but this is where again this aspect of Maharshi here. I'll chant the shloka and we will do it next time. Maharshaya sapta purve, Maharshaya sapta purve, Chatvaro manavastatha, Chatvaro tatha, Madbhava manasa jataha, Madbhava manasa jataha, Yesham loka ima prajaha, Yesham loka of prajaha. So he brings that concept of, again, the 7 great rishis. And then he adds again the 4 sages and also the manus. And he says, possessed of powers and born free alone, from these are where the creatures of the world have come from. So we'll discuss a little more on the sages and the manus and what does he mean by the fact that this whole creation has come from Para Prakriti. So with that, we'll finish. Sarve bhavantu sukinaha, sarve niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, Ma kaschid dukkha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hari Om.
Sunitha ji.
Hari Om. I will
Thank
see
you,
you next
everyone.
So
week.
much, Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om.